Hello, my name is Aaron Sampson, CEO of Lush Lawn, and this is
Ken Jesso, COO of Lush Lawn.
welcome to the Lush Lawn Pro Podcast. This is episode number, I think it's 8. So we had a little discussion about that before, but yes, it's number 8, and I'm going to turn this over to Ken.
Yeah, I'm excited for today. Aaron and I were discussing what should we talk about on our next podcast, right? So we were bouncing ideas back off of one another. And I really enjoy throwing you in the hot seat. So we decided we were going to go that path again today. And as we were coming up with ideas and strategies, we were just kind of thinking back on what we do, right? And a lot of times, it seems almost weekly, Aaron's given me some new idea or some new concept that he just read about. He shares it with me, shares it with the rest of the team. So he's always reading, always looking through books and ways to improve the business and himself personally, growth. So we thought that'd be a really good idea, right? So today we're going to share what you consider your top 10 most influential books on business. I'll ask you some questions about each individual book, and we'll kind of go from there. So I'm looking forward to this. I'll get to sit back and just drill you with questions. So I did want to start off just by reading the list that you had provided to me. So just in order, and I'm sure we'll get this in the screen for people to see if you want to look these up later. We have 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. We have Ethics by Aristotle. Poor Richard's Almanac by Ben Franklin. The Richest Man in Babylon by George Carlson. Principles of Scientific Management by Frederick Taylor. My Years with General Motors by Alfred Sloan. The Outsiders by William Thorndike. Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. The Education of Cyrus by Xenophon. Customers for Life by Carl Sewell. And if you're counting, that was already 10, but The Overachiever and Aaron, he gave me an 11th, so couldn't narrow it down to 10. So we have The Practice of Management by Peter Drucker as well. So that is the list. And before we get into those specifics, Aaron, I thought it'd be nice to start off with kind of your philosophy behind it, right?
Well, first of all, I think you forgot one. So Green Eggs and Ham by Dr. Seuss. That probably should have made the list. Actually, as a joke, somebody gave that assignment to me, and they wanted me to do a book report on that.
Yeah.
And so I was up for it, and I did the report, and I read the book, and I got some business ideas actually out of Green Eggs and Ham, and turned the report into the person that gave me the book as a joke, and it all turned out well. But unfortunately, that did not make the list. But anyways, let's get back to some serious stuff here. So where were we at here, Ken?
Yeah, you say that tongue in cheek, but I bet you there was something that you implemented from that.
There was something that was in there that worked.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, no, I thought before we kicked it off, we just dive into your philosophy about reading books and how you attach them to the business of Lush Lawn here and what we do. And looking through it in preparation for this, Aaron sent me over his notes, so I've got a book myself on the books you've read, right? So he sent me quite a bit to formulate these questions. But your notes span everything from customer service, hiring, capital allocation, vertical integration. Was there a moment when you realized you needed to study business in that level of depth, or was it just something that evolved kind of over time with Lush Lawn as you worked through the business?
Yeah, so I've been on and off throughout my life an avid reader, and probably about 30 years ago, I started reading about business generally. And so when I was very young, I'd read the stories of John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, and they were very inspirational, influential to me at a young age. And as I started reading through those, I also became a businessman as well myself. And I understood the importance of books like that in business. And as I started becoming more involved in different areas of the business, then I had to read some more specialized books, and then also some high-level books too. That gave me even a broader knowledge and also some specific knowledges within business itself.
Okay, very good. And then with these, as I read through them, people might have noticed several of them were written a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
Decades ago. Some of them, Aristotle, millenniums ago, right? So
Yeah. So Aristotle, that's like 2,300 years ago, probably. That his was written. Xenophon is probably about 2,400 years ago. So yeah, those are the two oldest books in
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
But with that, what do you find in those older texts that maybe modern texts miss, or what
Well,
draws you to
first of
them?
all, I stand corrected. So I call them books. But back then they would write in scrolls. So I can't remember if it was papyrus or if it was tablets or whatever, but they're called some sort of a scroll. So that's what
Okay.
they would write in back then. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Do you find something with older texts that you just don't get from modern texts generally, or?
It's just I think that's just something that I really enjoy personally. I've really do enjoy ancient history, and that some of it applies to business, not all of it. A lot of it's just for my personal enjoyment. But yeah, I would read old texts, ancient texts. So for example, Polybius, I would read his texts, and a lot of it would be lost. So you'd read, I'd read a few pages, and then there'd be a few pages that are just lost and never to be found. And then you'd have to pick up and think to yourself, well, what happened in these like 5 or 6 pages that are missing? You have to think about it. And it was, I really enjoyed reading like that. So I would read those kinds of books quite often as well. But yeah, I just enjoy doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I know we do book assignments here. The next one you ask me to do, maybe I'll just write a page, and a page later you'll figure out the rest. Then we're good with that to
Yeah.
keep you inspired there.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
Yep.
And like I said, you hand me a lot of them. So you have handwritten notes that
Yeah.
connect almost every concept really back to lawn care operations. So as you're reading them, you truly, I can just tell from your notes, you're driving it to
Yeah.
what we do, right? Do you read with a pen in hand? Is that how you do it, actively translating, or is it
Yeah.
something that comes up weeks later where you're
Yeah.
like, hey, maybe
Yeah.
this is a
I really should have brought one of my books in for the podcast, but yes, I do. When I read a book, I have a pen in hand always. And I'm writing as I'm reading. I'm interacting with the book, and sometimes it might be an idea that pops in my head that might not be totally related to the book. Usually it is, but not totally related to the book. There'll be something I'll go back through later and implement for my business, for example. Our founding fathers, some of our founding fathers did this as well. So if you went through, say, Thomas Jefferson's library, my understanding is if you went through his books, you would see that he wrote his own notes through the books that he read. But it's a very good practice. So my own practice with that is to write my notes. And then when I'm done with the book, what I do is I just take all those notes and put them on some paper. What I started doing even more recently is putting together what's called an executive summary, and that converts all those notes into different action items and things like that that you can implement in your business. So yes, it's very helpful. A book is maybe 5 to 10% as effective as it could be if you really just read it and then you forget about most of what you read and don't convert it to action. The goal really is to convert it to action.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
I think that key concept too at the end you mentioned about after you're done going through and taking those notes and putting them in a document. I think that's key because I've done that too, where I'm noting stuff, but then what I do, I shut the book, I throw it back on the shelf, and I never revisit it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's weeks, months later before I actually look at it again.
Yeah.
But having that document, I think, is a great idea for people to put that together when they're all wrapped up.
Yeah.
It's really helpful.
Yeah, so these are the notes right here, and I'll just kind of put these up for the camera. People are listening probably won't be able to see it, but a little stack of notes. So this is, I think, 7 of the books that are on the list I did take notes for, and this goes back over probably the last 15 years. Some of these books were like, one was like 2 months ago, but other books were like 15 years ago. And so when I look at the books that were 15 years ago and look at some of the notes, it's crazy, but I've implemented a lot of the things that I did put in here over the years, and they've been very helpful as well.
Yeah. No, it's funny. As I read your notes, I see concepts at Lush Lawn where I'm like, that's where that came from, right? So it's
Okay,
interesting, as I
yeah.
go through. Something about depreciation that's actually specifically in here. I think may have came from a book just based off your notes. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting to see how you did tie those into the
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
So when there's millions of books, how do you choose the right book to read?
Yeah, so with the right book to read, first of all, what I like to say is when I was young, I like to read, right? But I would just kind of read randomly, and I would just, okay, this has a cool title.
Yeah.
Let's read this book. It looks like a good book on business or a good book on this or that. And what I did is I did find some good books, no doubt, but I really wasted a lot of time, a lot of my time reading through books that I shouldn't be reading. You have to figure that for every book you read, it's like 20 to 40 hours of your time. And it's just not time well spent if it's a book that you're not really getting anything out of. But you should ask yourself these questions, okay, before you choose a book. What are your learning goals right now? What are you trying to learn? So you should always ask yourself that. What are you trying to learn? And then you should match up with what you're trying to learn to that book. So then you would go through the books on that topic. You would make sure that book is covering those goals. You can read reviews on that book. And then what I like to do is I like to read 3 to 5 pages from a book first before I purchase it. So I used to do it in the bookstores. That's where I would do it. I'd read like 3 to 5
Yeah.
pages from a book and then purchase it. You can find some pages of a book, usually like the first 10 pages or something of a book. You can find that online.
Yeah.
So that's how you should do it. That's how you should read a book. Because the worst thing is to spend 20 to 40 hours of your time reading a book that was probably a waste of time. There was
Yeah.
the one book that comes to mind is there's one like 3 years ago that I think you and I both read actually at the same time, and it was not the
Yeah.
best book.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember.
I do remember speaking to you
Yeah.
afterwards, and we're like, yeah, it
Yeah,
didn't get a
yeah.
ton
So
from that.
yeah, I don't want to criticize them on here. I don't want to hurt any feelings with that. So I'll leave. I won't mention the name or anything. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah, so you're very purposely driven when you're reading a book. You're intentional about what you're doing. You're trying to get something to attach to the business. A lot of people argue there's other, entertainment
Yeah.
value too, right? Some people are
Yeah.
reading for entertainment versus
Yeah.
that. But yeah, it seems like each thing you do, it's always there's a goal in mind. It's
Yeah.
not just to get enjoyment out of it, it's to actually
Yeah.
learn and,
Yeah.
and practice it.
So,
So,
yeah, I mean, you got people in the academic field who are, pure thinkers, right? Okay,
mm,
which is wonderful. And then you got people in the business field that are pure doers, right?
yeah.
But I like to merge the thinking and the doing together, right? You got to get the thinking and the doing mixed together, and the best thoughts need to convert into the best actions. And so that's how I approach books.
Okay. I went through all your notes and I did jot down a couple questions. So I came up with some questions for each book. I thought we'd dive into that and we can kind of tie them back into practical use for the viewers
Okay.
and what we do. So we'll start off with Carl Sewell's Customers for Life. You noted, so from your notes, that everyone is a customer service rep. In the field service business where technicians are often in a truck, right, they're by themselves. How do you make that philosophy stick?
Yeah, so that is a great book. It's a very easy read, Carl Sewell, Customers for Life. So I just want to mention that before I get into
Yeah, yeah.
your question.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, so you have to let everybody know that the customer is the reason why the business exists. Your business exists to serve the customer, and so you mentioned tech specifically. So techs, yeah, the way they dress in their uniforms, the way they talk to the customers, the kinds of notes they leave, the kind of messages they digitally send out to customers. If they pick up toys off the lawn or put the garbage can back or get the edges of the lawn, do the little extra things, all that matters. And so that is always good for the customer. It's good for the company, and it's also good for the tech. The tech, if they are able to do a really good job for their customers, they're going to get neighbors, and it'll be easier for them to do their routes throughout the year because they're doing not just one stop on a street, they're doing 5 or 6 stops on a street. And it all works together. And that ties to Customers for Life with Carl Sewell.
Gotcha. From Sewell's book still, you wrote about shopping in a competition every 3 months and using mystery shoppers on yourself, right?
Yeah.
So when I talk about concepts, these are things that I see in our business that we do. But what's the most uncomfortable flaw that you've discovered when doing that mystery shopping of yourself? Or maybe when you shop the competition and say, hey, they're really doing something much stronger than we are or something. What's one thing that stood out to you through secret shopping, we call it?
Yeah, sometimes there have been times where we don't answer the phone. This hasn't been recent, by the way, but there have been times like in the maybe 5 years ago, for example, where we weren't answering phones well enough, quickly enough. So that was certainly an issue. Um, I will say now we're doing a very good job with that overall. Yeah, we are doing a good job with answering questions and things like that when we call into the office. And yeah, so what I do on my phone, I'll put it up so my caller ID doesn't show, and
Yeah.
I'll just call in, and people still probably recognize my voice, but
Yeah.
I hope they don't. I try to go like this or something, but I don't think that really works. I think they still know who it is. I can't fake that. I can't feminize my accent too much, I guess. So that's how that is. But yeah, so with regards to that, we probably do the secret shopping about once a year now,
Mm.
not every 3 months.
Yeah.
But it is super helpful, especially with your competitors, because you get to understand how you stack up with your competitors. So what services they provide that you don't provide, or what services you provide that they don't provide, where the prices stand. how they show value, their knowledge of different services and products and things like that. So that's some of the benefits you get from secret shopping.
Yeah. Yeah. The answering the phones, I know we got a really strong team now that really prides themselves. It's tracked every
Yeah.
second of the day, I feel like. So that's good. But it makes me always think about sometimes, one of the terms, sometimes the best ability is availability. You're right. So being there, being ready for your customers and answering those phones. Last one there from Customers for Life. But School talks about paying people in parallel with their performance. And even starting salaries high before reducing them over time seems counterintuitive. But have you ever experimented with compensation in ways that have scared you or maybe put you a little off ease?
Yeah. So I will say this. I say when I read these books, I can't say that I take them always as gospel. Okay, so when it says to reduce somebody's salary over time and make up for it with a bonus, I have not done that. I have, that's something I haven't done. However, within the company, almost every position has somewhere between 20 and 40% of their compensation, maybe 10 to 40% of their compensation, based on bonuses. And so you want to bonus up some area that makes sense within the particular position. So you have retention bonuses for people, for customer service. You have sales bonuses, of course, commission for certain people. For managers, you would have a revenue or profit and loss bonuses, things like that. So that's I think it's important to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something we do. You just said it, right? 10 to 40% things what you said for compensation here at Lush Lawn. But what I like about what we do is you always balance it out, right? So when you're incentivizing something, you could inadvertently maybe take away for something else. And what I mean by that is, let's say we're incentivizing, just getting the work done, getting as much production done as possible. Well, that could lead to poor service, right? So you always balance it out with other incentives on the service end to get a nice balance. So I think that's really, really helpful and has worked really well for us. So.
Yeah, certainly have a customer retention bonus is really important. We could do a whole episode on bonuses, probably, by the way. But that's super important. I will say what's missed sometimes is people don't always equate volume of getting your work done with customer service, but getting people done in a reasonably quick manner is important for customer
100%.
service. And so the volume actually is important. It just needs to be done right. And so my definition of efficiency is doing things right in the least amount of time, but it has to be done right.
Correctly.
So
yeah, awesome. All right, I was going to hop into the next one here. Before we get going, it's The Practice of Management by Drucker. Any just general thoughts on that first before I dive into them?
Yeah, Peter Drucker is incredible. He wrote, I'm going to say maybe, I don't know how many, but I'm going to say like 20 or 30 really real quality books. I've only read about 4 or 5 of them. He really spanned, I think, from like roughly 1960 to roughly 1990 in his book writing, something like that. And this was a real inspirational book for me, and it really helped out the business a lot. So,
Yeah, I had a couple key questions from that book, and it's about management by objectives and self-control versus bringing it down their necks.
Yeah.
It's a tension, I'm sure every owner feels, every manager feels. But how do you give, let's say, a manager autonomy while still maintaining standards across different areas of the business?
Yeah. So if you have to, when we bring on a new manager, you do have to do some hand holding while you're training them. Maybe for 2 or 3 months, you have to do some hand holding for sure with a new manager. After that, if you have to breathe down a manager's neck or you have to stay on top of a manager all the time, then he's either not the right guy or he has maybe a little bit more training to go. But that's not how it should be. You should be able to just allow your manager to mostly have free reign. You have metrics and KPIs in place to measure exactly what's going on. But if the metrics are looking decent, then you mostly leave that manager alone. You will give them assignments from time to time and just make sure you work with them on that and that those are getting done. But for the most part, you got to let a manager manage. And so this is where this comes from Drucker as well. And I'm not sure it's in any of your questions here, but I have mentioned on a prior podcast where he goes by 4 levels of management. So first you have to learn how to manage your work. Okay. So as a worker, you have to learn how to manage your work. Okay. Then you have to manage your workers. Then you have to manage your managers, and then you have to manage the business. So this ties to managing your managers. When you're managing workers, it's a little bit more autocratic. You're definitely more involved, with things. And but when you're managing managers, it's definitely more of a collaborative effort. It's less autocratic. It's more democratic.
Mhm. Yeah, and there's this. You may hit the nail on the head too, right? Having the right person in place and making sure they're trained up, because it gets to that tough point too for managers when you gotta let someone go. But sometimes that's the best thing for them too. If you're constantly bringing down someone's neck, they don't like that feeling. They're not successful at what they're doing, so you got to know when to ultimately make that decision. So it's helpful.
Hmm.
Next question I have on this is Drucker distinguishes between productive overhead and what's termed here as parasitical overhead. In a service business, how do you tell the difference between administrative work that actually reduces effort or one that just add cost?
Yeah, you take a look at the output. A good manager that's in the right role with the right duties will definitely add a lot to the team. Everybody needs a coach. And business is no different than, say, sports, for example. And so so every team needs a coach. And but yeah, sometimes you may have too many people doing the same thing. So if you see certain tasks being done by multiple people, then you probably have too many people. It doesn't really help if you have more than one person accountable for a task or something like that. It just really doesn't help. Then who do you go to when you want to see if the task is done? Which of the two or three people do you want to look at? You can't do it that way. Also, I will say too, so managers, it depends on who they're managing, but managers typically should have no more than, say, 7 or 8 direct reports. You go over that, then you probably need to bring in a new manager. But if you have somebody that's just managing 1 or 2 people, then that's probably also not an effective, efficient manager.
Yeah. Yeah, I always when I work with branch managers, for example, too, I always try to get them to understand the whys behind what they're doing, right? Because there's times where people do just view it as a task, right? There's something they might do every single day or every single
Yeah.
week, and they think it's just another thing they have to check off because I have to do it. But really understanding why, what benefit does that bring? Generally, you're not going to ask. I won't ask someone to do it, and you haven't asked someone to do something just to keep people busy.
Yeah.
That's what really is coming out of it. So getting people to understand that as
Yeah.
well.
No, business is not a charity. I'm sure it's not, a great thing for me to say here, but it
Mhm.
really isn't a charity. Now, that doesn't mean a business shouldn't do charity. A business should always be involved with the community, do charity, do charitable works within the community. We do a lot of that every quarter. We do that,
Yeah.
but the business itself is not a charity. So the people that are working within the business have to do productive work. The 150 years ago, there's a terminology for people that weren't doing productive work within a business, and it was called feather bedding, and it was a practice of just putting people in jobs that didn't really have any purpose.
Okay. And I'm going to move on. We've got several books to go, so I tried to limit it to a couple questions each. But the next one is going to be My Years with General Motors from Alfred
Yeah.
Sloan.
Yeah.
So we have
So I'd like to merge a little bit of Peter Drucker with Alfred Sloan first.
okay.
Okay. So Peter Drucker, in reading Peter Drucker, he actually introduced me to Alfred Sloan because he referenced Alfred Sloan and Alfred Sloan's interviews with Alfred Sloan and his book and stuff like that. So in reading Peter Drucker, I wrote in the book, okay, I need to read Alfred Sloan. And then so after I was done reading Peter Drucker, then I went and read Alfred Sloan. So that's another way of finding good books to read is by good authors that you are reading. But yes, go ahead on
Yeah.
Alfred Sloan here.
Yeah, so Sloan really he obsessed over rate of return on investment, and he measured it over longer periods of time. And in your notes, you asked, should it be 1, 5, or 10 years? So what did you end up deciding on lawn care equipment and vehicle decisions? As far
Yeah. So what I decided to do with trucks, um, is go 10 years. I think we can get 10 years out of trucks. Some people do 5 instead. We do 10. It really is about the 8, 9, 10 year point in our business anyways. We're not putting a lot of miles in our vehicles here though, but
Mhm.
8, 9, 10 year point where it starts to get to be where you have more maintenance and things like that, more breakdowns and costs of production. Eventually it's worth it to get a new vehicle.
Mhm.
It's more cost effective to get a new vehicle. So, with regards to equipment, we usually go 5 years with equipment. So that's what we do with most of our equipment.
Yeah. But a concept that came from the book that made just
Yeah.
look into it a little deeper and
Mhm.
study it and come up with that. So
Yeah, I did want to mention too with Alfred Sloan. Alfred Sloan really was the catalyst behind General Motors, and I don't have the exact number here, but I believe he was a CEO with General Motors for something like 30 years, and was headquartered in Flint for a good period of that time. He's originally from New York, but he moved to Michigan, headquartered in Flint. There's even like a museum named after him in Flint called the Sloan Museum, which we've sponsored some things at the Sloan Museum before.
Yeah.
But he's got a real strong connection to our community here. It's just more intimate, actually, reading that when you read the book. So yeah.
Aaron, in your notes, you wrote about the danger of inventory runaway in managing inventories by branch. In a business that has a lot of different products, a lot of different equipment and fuel, everything else we track, how close did you come to learning that lesson the hard way?
We've done an okay job managing inventory. Um, I guess I've never learned the lesson.
Yeah.
Because I as crazy as it is, I think I've learned the lesson from other people's mistakes. So, which is the best way to learn a lesson, right? With regards to inventory, I definitely look at a lot of year-over-year stuff. I do it like once a month. And you're COO, you report to me, and God bless you. You've done it for a long time here. I'll give you the tough questions like, okay, like why is inventory like $30,000 more than it was last year at this time? Or why are what's going on? Where are we purchasing and stuff? So, in reality, 30,000 isn't a crazy number, but there's 100,000 would be a crazy number, right? So, and I always make an important thing too, like going in. So our business is cyclical here in Michigan for sure. That's why we got to go to Texas or something. But anyways, no, I'm joking. But anyways, yeah. So if you look at inventory over the winter, you really don't want to carry a lot into the winter. So if you carry a lot of inventory into the winter, that just ties up and drains your cash flow. So we do a pretty good job of say in September, October, canceling orders where needed and making sure we trim things up, and just kind of making sure we're not running with too much stuff over the winter as well, because that does suck up cash flow. Like
Yeah. Yeah, I specifically put that one in there because I've learned a lot about inventory management and the importance and different things we do from you and those nice, peaceful, calm conversations we have about inventory.
Yeah.
So it's been
No, I don't know if I got all this from Drucker. A lot of this I just got from myself, I guess, but some of it I got from Drucker.
Yeah.
But anyways, with regards to inventory, it tells you a lot, right? It tells you what products you are using, you aren't using. They'll tell you what products you should be using, but maybe somebody's not using. I mean, for example, we found like certain people in our company have certain products that they should be using for certain jobs, but we weren't going through any of those products.
Yeah.
So then we're like, okay, well, why not? Okay.
Mhm.
You can detect theft and loss through inventory. You can detect if you're using too much product if you check through inventory. So super important. That being said, it's also very boring. Okay. Going through inventory and counting 1 bag, 2 bag, 3 bag, 4 bag, super boring stuff. At least maybe you can do it in pallets or something like that. Super boring stuff. Usually takes our guys probably an hour in each location or something like that, like once a week, doing it. But where the magic happens, if there can be magic in inventory and accounting and things like that, where the excitement happens is after that count's done and it's done well, you feel proud because you've done some hard work with your accounting. But you can analyze it then. You can take a look at it and see if there's maybe some theft, some waste, products that are overused, underused, and things like that. But you can only do that by doing the actual count.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that is where it does get fun and it gets exciting. And while the task of it is a little boring, but analyzing it, making some decisions is great. And just for the viewers, any of those like discrepancies Aaron has, it's usually just data entry on the finance team, never on operations.
It cuts both ways for sure. I'm sure it does. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to transition over now to, I did read this book too. I think you and I read it around the same time. Might have been your third or fourth time reading it. Well, it was my first. So we were bouncing, ideas back and forth while reading it. But that's Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. So I want to speak about that a bit.
Yeah, and that's a pretty big book. It's like 400 pages probably. Yeah. I've read it twice.
Okay.
So that's the book that I've read twice. There are some books I've read like 8, 9 times. Richest Man, Babylon, I've probably read it 15 times maybe, but anyway, and that's on this list.
Mhm.
But yes, with regards to Isaacson and Jobs, Isaacson is the author, and he really good author. He's written a book on Elon Musk as well, also a really good book. Not as good as the Jobs book. Didn't quite make the list, but very close. The Jobs book is very special. And as far as Steve Jobs goes, Steve Jobs is one of the deities in business. He is at the top of Mount Olympus. Is Steve Jobs. He's a true genius in every meaning of the word, especially in design and marketing. He was a genius. Um, so it's a real enjoyable book to read. He has a fair amount of drama too, which makes the book interesting. So anyways,
Yeah.
go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, so I have a couple questions from that. And reading through your notes, you noted that Jobs is willing to bet the entire company on a new idea. So in a business like ours, that's certainly seasonal in Michigan, cash flow dependent. How do you decide when a bet is big but not reckless?
Yeah. So I've come across certain things in our business that we've taken big bets on, and I have to think to myself, okay, well, if this goes bad, will it ruin the company? Will it sink the company? Will it put the company in jeopardy? And if the answer is yes, I probably won't do it. And just giving an example, we didn't do a great job with our franchising initiative, about a year ago, and so we pulled the plug on it. And we had a loss of something like $200,000 in a year just on that component. Did very well in the other parts of our business, so we were able to manage that, but didn't want to manage it for another year. So that's something where I was like, okay, we didn't quite make that, and that's just what it is. Um, but there are risks that we've taken that have paid off for sure. And I do think we need to do a better job analyzing, what those are, what the upside is, what the downside is,
Mhm.
and then you have to make sure you execute on it exactly the way it needs to be done for it to work out.
Yeah. Yeah, if I could share a quick spot on this, because it's also very inspiring when
Yeah.
you make those decisions. So we were kicking around the idea of centralization for some components of
Yeah.
our business a few years back, and we talked about it for a while, and then an opportunity came up where really it was a personnel that we were working through. And you and I were talking back and forth, and I remember you responded to me, "Fortune favors the bold."
Okay.
Because it was hey, do we wait a little bit on this? Do we do it now? And I know we've talked about it, and you had a good concept of it, but just that comment, right? Let's do
Yeah.
it now. Like
Yeah.
now's the time. I think this will work, and it did. It worked out very well for us. But when a leader of a company says that, it's pretty inspiring.
Yeah, so fortune favors the bold. I don't remember how it's said in Latin, but it's an old Roman saying, and I don't think it was Caesar that said it, but I know it was an ancient Roman saying, probably from a Roman general or something like that. But yeah, it is important to sometimes make these bold decisions and follow it up with bold action and do it like right now, like this second. Just get out there and do it. So when I come to a decision on something, I don't wait. I mean, you do have to do some planning and things like that and roll it out the right way, but you do have to act on it.
I'm glad you brought that up because this is not I'm not making this up. He did when he actually texted me and he wrote it in Latin. So when you sent it to me, the text was in Latin, right?
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
so
yep.
it's kind of cool.
I just forgot the Latin.
Yeah, it was nice. Now, Jobs had an obsession with beauty as the absolute minimum number of steps, right? So simplicity with some things.
Yeah.
Your notes mention, ironically enough, where we're at, a phone app to identify weeds and trees. How are you using technology to remove steps rather than add to the complexity of the business?
So ironically, this actually comes from another book of Isaacson's with Elon Musk. Elon Musk came to a conclusion instead of adding, he started deleting. So when he came to his plants and looked at all the different steps and all the things that they were doing, he would just say, delete this, delete that, delete this. Why shouldn't we delete this? Delete, and he would just find things to delete. And he cut out maybe 30% of the steps in there. But yes, if you cut out unnecessary steps, then it makes things much more efficient. And you also learn that from reading Fred Taylor's Scientific Management, where he measures everything with a stopwatch. Because sometimes I probably shouldn't cross over to that because we'll probably talk about Fred Taylor later.
Yeah.
But sometimes your awareness is at odds with reality. So you have to like time it, right?
Mhm.
And see if, okay, is what I'm doing actually adding to time or subtracting the time? Is it doing anything better or worse? But you should always be asking yourself, is this something that's needed? Is it something that brings value to the customer? Is this something that brings value to the company? Is it something that brings value to the employees? Why are we doing this?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to transition over now, and it's tough. When I was going through and making these questions, there really could be so many on each of them, but trying to keep it to two. So the next one I want to talk about, I think you read this one fairly recently, actually.
Yeah.
0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. So I wanted to jump into that book. I don't know if there's anything you want to start off with on that first, or if you want to just head right into the questions.
Yeah. So Peter Thiel, he was a PayPal founder. He's in the tech space. He's a contemporary of us, and very, very interesting guy. I read this book probably 4 or 5 months ago, I think. So, this is a good book, and this is a book where I haven't been able to implement a lot of what I've read.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get going.
Yeah. So my first one then might be a little early in the stages where we're at now, but I've seen the 10x concept in other places too, not just from this, but Thiel says proprietary technology must be 10 times better to lead to a real monopoly advantage. Your notes ask directly, how do you make lawn care 10 times better? Have you found anything that passes that 10x test yet?
Well, respectfully, if I did, I don't know if I'd share it.
Fair enough.
I have to disclose that. I'm sorry. But it's I would say it's elusive. Yeah, it's somewhat elusive, but it's something that should be sought after because it is there. There's no doubt that things can be done way, 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 way better than the way they're being done now. So I'll just say that.
I'm gonna interview you again after the smile on your face is awesome, right? I don't know if anyone can, if they catch that coming through, but the way you're just that little smirk, there's something there. So maybe 50 years from now I'll interview you again and you'll share your thoughts on that. So we'll come back to that.
5.
Okay. From the same 0 to 1, the idea of giving away the first stage free, and you've talked about this in other podcasts, but with Standard Oil, I know that's influenced you. What Standard Oil did influence you in your business life too. But talked about Standard Oil giving away kerosene lamps, for example.
Yeah.
Have you experimented with the first treatment or similar loss leaders to lock in longer contracts and do things there?
Yeah. So what Standard Oil did is back in the 1800s. Oil really was mostly refined to be kerosene. So before electricity, people used lamps with kerosene in them. So what Standard Oil did in order to capture the market in China is they gave people free lamps so that they would be lifetime customers. Lifetime, right? Lifetime customers for their oil. And so that was a genius move, right? Giving people free lamps, and then they had to purchase your oil because then they're going to be in the dark every night. So that was what they did. So when we say, okay, use our service, get the first application free, that pales in comparison to this in scale and everything else. It doesn't have the same impact. It's the same concept, but it's very kind of microscopic in scale, I guess. It doesn't have quite the punch, the impact that Standard Oil's approach gave. I would say that one that might be a little bit more aligned with it, but still not the same impact, would be like a free soil test that adds to a lot of additional services, because whatever you find in the soil test leads to a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure people have their own thoughts, but it's the same cell phone companies, right? They'll give you a cell phone to lock you into a 3-year deal of payments, right? So different things there, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, the Gillette razors are an example, right? They give you the stick, and then you've got to spend a fortune on the razors forever. So so
I'll share. I know this isn't the most frugal thing to do, but I guess it is frugal in a way, because instead of buying the refills, I always just buy the razor again because it comes with 2, and I'm like, it's only a $10 hit versus the $30 hit for the 5 other ones. So while the math shakes out, it's probably better to get the other ones. I'm like, right now today it feels better just to buy the razor again.
So I used to measure what my cost per shave was. It used to be like 7/100ths of a cent or something per shave. I used to do something like that. I had it down to the science, but Yeah, you have to get the straight blade razors and yeah.
You
So,
shared this with me. I've been with you 13 going on for a long time,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But early on, when I was here, you shared that story, and I thought you were so full of it. I'm like,
Oh,
did
no, I
you
was.
actually, I know,
No, no.
I know, I've learned that, but I'm like, he
No,
actually
no,
does that.
no,
So,
no. Cost per shave. Very important. Very important KPI. Yes.
all right. All right, I'm gonna head over to I think this was a recent one too, because I think
Yeah.
you've spoken to me pretty recently. But that's the Outsiders,
Yeah.
not Stay Gold Outsiders, but something else here by William Thorndike, that you love.
Yeah. So this, yeah, I read this, finished reading this probably a month ago.
Yeah.
And where did I get this book from? I actually got it from ChatGPT. So
Okay.
ChatGPT listed some books. That's where I started with it. I did do my own research on it after going through it. They recommend some other books too, but this was the one that really kind of stood out to me. And as I did some research, it's a really good book.
Yeah.
Yeah, The Outsiders by William Thorndike is a very, very good book. It's very dialed into Warren Buffett is very dialed into the book. There's a chapter in the book that's pretty much devoted to how he does his investments and business and things like that. So he's one of the characters within the book. And then what I would like to say with the theme of the book is it really captures, and I'm paraphrasing here, but elite CEOs. So it covers, I believe, 10 elite CEOs in different businesses and different industries. And it sort of explains what they do and what makes them effective CEOs. And so I found that very helpful for myself.
Okay. Yeah, I've got the three on this one. The first one is, as I read it, it's probably fairly obvious, but I was curious personally on this a little bit. But one of the concepts is never pay more than 12 times earnings. So
Yeah.
when you're looking at acquisitions, it's a specific rule in your notes. I'm sure you have, but have you ever been close? So my question is, have you ever walked away from a deal due to that rule?
So this is something that's really coined in the book,
Mhm.
okay, itself. I don't necessarily follow this myself. It was something I just quoted out of the book
Yeah.
recently. I don't think that's always needs to be the case. If it's something that you buy from another company and it's a tuck-in that fits within your existing business. But if you buy an outside company in a new market, in a new location, then that's when this would come into play,
Okay.
where it's not really a tuck-in. And then you would want to look at get a good idea of the books, examine, audit the books and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
You wrote that one of the most important decisions a CEO makes is how he spends his time, operations, capital allocations, or investor relations.
Yeah.
How did you restructure your own calendar after reading this? I know it's pretty recent, but have you made some adjustments to your own schedule after reading this book?
I mean, it reinforces what I've already known, but yes, I have made adjustments, in my calendar. So one of the things that it preaches is to have a not do list or not to do list. And so that's one of the things it does. So if you're doing things on a weekly basis, you probably maybe you've been doing them for years or more than a year or something like that, or maybe just even months. You want to reevaluate. Should I even be doing this anymore? Is this something I should be doing? Is it something I could delegate? Is it, what else could I be doing with my time that makes my time more valuable? So I do take a look at the things I'm doing, and I try to make sure that they have a high value, that I'm good at it. And if I'm not, then I'll delegate it to somebody else, or maybe it's something that's just not worth doing at all.
Mhm.
And so yeah, that's very important.
Yeah, I've actually used that concept with branch managers. Sometimes maybe they're newer in their role, just getting started, or maybe they've been in a while, but they've got added responsibilities and they struggle with that. So actually have them write a time log, right, of every single thing they do
Yeah,
throughout the day. And if you do that over a decent period of time, at least a week, you can go through it then and eliminate. You notice, hey, I'm doing the same thing, but what value is that really adding,
yeah,
right? So you can take it out. So really
yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
Uh,
Also, too, people tend to gravitate towards what the things they like doing. As a CEO or as a business person, you have to not do that so much. You have to learn to enjoy doing the things you don't normally enjoy doing sometimes, and then some of the things you enjoy doing, you still have to delegate sometimes if
yeah,
they're maybe not high level functions.
yeah.
So
That's a very, very key piece of advice. I'll share all that with some people. I just thought of some people as you said that actually. So
okay,
yeah, it was helpful. Thorndike highlights carving out blocks of time too to wrestle with key decisions alone. you did to make a note in your notes that you
Yeah.
thought this was very important. Do you have a specific place or routine for that kind of like deep thinking?
I don't have a routine, but I do set aside time to do that, to sit in my office usually and just kind of think. Sometimes it might be at night in bed. Um, it just really depends. I will, sometimes it's hard for me to watch something like on TV or something that's streaming or whatever, and I'll be thinking about something in business, for example,
Yeah.
and so that kind of it sort of interrupts some of the things I'm doing sometimes.
You just blindly while you have background, it becomes background noise. I know how
Yeah,
you operate it. Probably you're watching something else and you think, and then that's just in the background now. You're
exactly.
in your mind.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Next one, we're gonna go back. I think you mentioned at the top of the show here that it was about 2,300 years ago or
Yeah.
so. But that's Ethics by Aristotle. I'm not sure that's actually the full title. I think there's something that precedes that. But I
Yeah,
wasn't sure.
Nicomachean Ethics.
There you go.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
Nicomachean Ethics by Aristotle. So when I read this book, it was just I really was much younger, and I really just wanted to read up on philosophy, and but I was also in business. I was in the very beginning of business, and so but I didn't expect this book to have such a high impact on the way I did business, but it did, and it is very instrumental in that. It, of course, can have a much broader impact, and I'll explain how. There's just a lot of logic and reason behind that. So if you take anything that you're doing in any situation, you have to apply certain types of logic and reason that you can find in Aristotle, for example. And I don't see this on here, but syllogisms is very important to use in business. So if A is true, then B may also be true. If B is true, then C is true. So what's driving one may drive the other. What doesn't drive one drives the other. But learning these types of logic and reason can apply to all situations, and that's why it's so important to learn how to think for yourself in a broader sense. Where this doesn't give you the specific tools, it gives you the tools to use pretty much everything you come across.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. My first question is somewhat in that vein. But Aristotle argues that profit, like wealth or honor, is only an instrumental good, not a final end. What is the final good that you believe Lush Lawn actually serves?
Yeah, so the good that Lush Lawn serves, making it easy for our customers to enjoy a beautiful lawn, is what our purpose is with Lush Lawn. So why is that so meaningful? Why is that so important? Why is that so important to Metro Detroit where we serve and Flint where we serve? It's so important because the first thing that people see when they come home from their day at work is what? Their lawn. They come home to their lawn. They come home to their landscape. It sets the mood for them when they come home to their families and play with their kids, have dinner, whatever it is they do. The first thing they roll up to is a lawn. And if we can give somebody a beautiful lawn, it just puts a smile on somebody's face, and it's very important.
Yeah. And, as I was reading that, and the exact title of the document we created escapes me. But you did create a document on this that we share with all new employees. And it's kind of what that looks like, right? So the nice uniform technician shows up to your
Yeah.
property on a manicured lawn, and you actually put that on paper. I was thinking of that as you were going through.
Yeah, I believe it was Lush Lawn Spirit or Lush Lawn Experience.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, what are all the perfect things that you would encounter with Lush Lawn? It was, yeah, the uniform. If you call the office, somebody that's played on the other end that's knowledgeable that can help you with your concerns.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Very good. I love talking to you about this. I think you actually, in a previous episode, had mentioned, called me out a little bit on something with Aristotle's teachings, and gave me a little lesson on it there. So I'm going to take one more question on this one. But Aristotle's golden mean.
Yeah.
So the golden mean says virtue lies between two extremes. I looked those up and don't remember exactly what those were, but they're two extremes. But finding that middle requires practical wisdom, not rules. How do you train yourself or others to find the right measure when there's no spreadsheet or the perfect amount of caution or delegation? When I looked at it, so the way I would word this too is I was thinking of, take an example of hiring an employee.
Yeah.
Right. You got to hire fast, but you don't want to risk hiring fast or not hiring any at all because you're taking too long to deliberate on that decision. Right. So how do you find that balance when you're working on stuff?
Yeah. So when you look at the virtue there, I guess the virtue there is probably patience. But if patience is taken too far, then that's not good, right?
Yeah.
But if patience if it's rushed, then that's probably so you'd have the two extremes, right? You'd have the one where you just aren't doing anything. I guess I don't know what that would be called. I guess it'd be called slothy. I don't know, like a sloth or something.
Yeah.
And then you're patient in the middle, which is the golden mean. And then the next one over would be hasty, like you're just rushing through it and you're going to make a mistake. So that's how that would be applied. But yeah, you can apply that to pretty much all virtues. You can take a look at, say, courage, for example. Courage is certainly a virtue, or bravery and courage are virtues right in the middle there. We'll say courage and bravery. Being a coward is not a virtue, right? So coward is the other extreme. And then being, say, foolhardy or rash is the other extreme. So if you're somebody that's rash or foolhardy, you just take chances. You blow your money at the casino or something. I don't know. That's what you're doing on the one hand. But in the middle, you're being brave. You take calculated risks at the right time, and that is important. And being a coward is somebody that doesn't take any risks ever, no matter what the opportunity is. So that's where the golden mean would be represented there. In Aristotle's Ethics, that I like so much is while he says there's a golden mean for all the different virtues, right? There's also sometimes the golden mean actually isn't right in the middle. Sometimes it's a little bit closer to one extreme or the other, depending on what it is.
Okay.
So yeah. So I wish I could give some examples of that. I don't know them off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But with regards to spending money, right? So being cheap is one extreme. His golden mean was liberal. So being liberal is in the middle, and then maybe it translates different from Greek too.
Yeah.
So and then being like a spendthrift, right, is the extreme, like somebody that blows money. So somebody that blows money, somebody that hoards money, doesn't ever spend it no matter what, just kind of puts it under the mattress or whatever. But somebody that's liberal is somebody that probably invests some of their money, probably gives some of their money to charity, a certain percentage or something like that, whatever makes sense. And but then the person that spends it, they're probably, have an entourage of 10 people that they're giving their money to, and they're flashing their money and spending it quicker than they even get it, probably. So that'd be a golden mean right there. That's how it is.
Oh, in practice. Okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. We'll move on now to Poor Richard's Almanac by Ben Franklin.
Yeah.
So we'll dive into this. Anything before we get to those?
Yeah. So this is a book I read. I was probably like 20. I think I was 24. Very instrumental book. Probably read it twice. Ben Franklin is an incredible figure in American history. And there's actually a book by Isaacson on Franklin that I do want to read, but I haven't read it quite yet. Let's get into this.
Yeah. So most people have heard it, right? But Franklin preached that a penny saved is a penny earned, warned against needless debt. Yet growth strategy here requires heavy capital and risk. Did this frugality ever make you hesitate to spend aggressively? Or did you find ways to find that balance within?
Yeah, I found ways to make the balance. But if you borrow money and you're able to invest it and get more money in return, then that's not necessarily a bad borrowing of money. Okay, that's not a bad investment. It's not a bad leveraging. You just have to be careful with it. You don't want to get too carried away with it. When I look at another book in here, actually The Outsiders, it talks about The Outsiders, and I'm going to just reference my notes here because I think I circled it. But it's important to use a combination of debt, equity, and internal cash flow within your business. So you have to really use all three sources within your business. Now, in your personal life, you really don't want to carry debt. You just don't want to. You don't want to spend above your means. And so that's what Franklin is really referring to for the most part here is that. And the penny saved is a penny earned. That's a great quote. Love it. And it's true. It's true. If you can save a penny here, it's just like earning one.
Yeah, I was gonna, I didn't have specific questions on the next one, but you said you've read the book many times, so I thought you could just speak to it. But that's The Richest Man in Babylon by George Carlson. So if you just give a little background on that and those your takeaways from it, maybe.
Yeah. So this is the most instrumental book when I was young. I I'm going to say I was 21 or 22. And I read this book probably 15 times. I didn't know many other books to read at the time. I read some other ones, but I read this one a lot. I probably marked it up and marked it up and marked it up. But the overall theme of the book is that 10% of all you earn is yours to keep. Okay. So of what you earn, say you earn $1,000, save $100 of that. Okay. And so back then I went to college. I was doing like part-time work and sales and other things, and probably working like 20 or 30 hours a week. My goal that year was to save $4,000. This book kind of helped me with that a little bit. I invested some of it like in the like mutual funds, I should say, and things like that. And my goal was at the end of that year to start my own business with $4,000. Well, at the end of the year, I saved $3,920. I was really upset with myself that I fell $80 short of my goal. I was very, very upset with myself, and I'll never forget that number. But that was my goal on that was rooted in this book here. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's quite a personal anecdote that connects to the
Yeah.
book. And I did start the business, and it was a business that ran for like 7 years, and I ended up selling it. But it predates Lush Lawn. But
That's
but
interesting.
anyways, yeah,
Yeah. So 80
yeah,
bucks short. That's a
yeah. That's why I always
60.
remember that number. I
Yeah.
always remember that number.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're gonna go on to I believe this is our last one, Aaron, that I have off the list here, but that's the Education of Cyrus by Xenophon.
Yeah.
So if you want to speak to that briefly, and I think I have one or two questions on that, but if you want to talk about that.
Yeah. Xenophon was a general. Um, he was from a different city state in Greece, but he actually became a general for Sparta. So he was from a different city state. I can't remember if it was Athens or Thebes, but he ended up working for Sparta and became a general for Sparta. And he actually invaded Persia, which at the time was an enormous empire. The size of Greece versus the size of Persia would be kind of like maybe Mexico invading the United States or something. That's how kind of crazy it is. But he got well into the interior of Persia with his army, and there were other generals that were there too. And they got defeated in a battle, and he had to escape and evacuate with 500 soldiers. And so the name of the name of one of his book is it's about this escape of these 500 soldiers that had to go all the way back through the Persian Empire to get back to Greece, and they managed to do it successfully thanks to his good generalship. The other generals that were involved with this battle, they actually I think they got murdered or were killed in battle. So, but anyways, this is a little story on Xenophon, and he also wrote a book called The Education of Cyrus. That's the book that was very influential for me in business, in particular with leadership. And so it's funny because Peter Drucker, he was a little bit of a classicist, and he talked about this actually being the best book ever written on leadership, and it was written 2,500 years ago. So yeah.
Let's start that then. Okay. Yeah. So the question I had with that is, Xenophon rules not by force, but by making other followers want to obey.
Yeah.
Doing that through shared hardship, merit, and genuine care. In an industry like lawn care, you have some high technician turnover. They're out there by themselves, so some lonely field work. Have you found a way to inspire that kind of voluntary loyalty rather than just kind of like contractual compliance?
Yeah, so as a CEO, you have a little bit of a different persona with your direct reports. You have to kind of get, talk, work with them a little bit differently, right? Than you do with people that aren't your direct reports. So, for example, the lawn technicians, they don't see you every day. They probably see you like once a week, if that, right? So, what I've done a couple things with regards to that because it's their managers that are ultimately responsible for working with them. But what I do for myself is I do a CEO update every Monday morning to the whole company. It's broadcast to the whole company, to all the branches, right from the studio right here. And hopefully, and them being able to listen to me for about 10 minutes every week, talk to them about things that are important to the company, important to them, mentioning names, mentioning achievements, and things like that as well. That in of itself inspires some loyalty, so that when the technician is out on the lawn, they'll think highly of who ultimately is owning and running the company. so they don't have a bad feeling for the person that is actually ultimately their boss. And in that same vein too, it's because that's who they are. If I approach people that are not my direct reports, maybe in the office or in the field or something like that, I will be extremely friendly, very polite with them, and I will behave like a politician would behave, with shaking hands and getting to know people on a more personal level. Because again, I want that warm feeling towards me and about me. When people are working, and I just want to genuinely get to know and like people as well that work within the company.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I'll share with the viewers too. Another thing that you do personally is once a month, you do what we call coffee with the CEO.
Yeah.
So you visit each department or branch once a month. You sit down with several members from that department and just get to know them.
Yeah.
I think that really helps. They get to know you a little bit better, how you get to know them a little bit better.
Yeah.
I think it helps the whole company as a whole. So I know the team appreciates you doing that too. So it's really nice.
Yeah, coffee with the CEO, about 90% of my time, the first, say, 40, 50 minutes of my time. This goes about an hour, by the way. I'll spend with a department or a branch with 3 or 4 people that work there. And we have coffee, and it's mostly talking personal things. How are your kids? Where are you from? What other jobs did you do before this? At the very end of it, though, I will give them a chance to say, hey, look, do you have any questions for me? Is there anything you could comment on? Are there things that we could do better and make the company better? And so I give somebody a platform to just talk to me directly about it. But yes, it is very helpful with inspiring some loyalty and some leadership.
Yeah, that's
So another thing too that I think inspires loyalty is making sure that it cuts both ways. There's limits to loyalty, I would say, but you need to extend loyalty to the people that work for you too.
All right. Well, I think we've hit all the top 11
Yeah.
books that you find to be the most influential. And just a couple follow-up kind of wrap-up questions, thoughts throughout the whole series of books here that we discussed. So just a couple more for you, and then I'll let you off the hook here. But one that stood out to me as well was Steve Jobs warns about the moment when salespeople start running the business and company or start running the company rather, and then the product people get sidelined. So we operate in an industry that's notorious for commoditization, which I know we try to work through that. But how do you keep the product guys in charge?
Well, I think that's a quote by Steve Jobs. I think Steve Jobs is the one that quoted that.
Yep.
And he can say that. Steve Jobs can say that. But I would say that Steve Jobs himself was an incredible salesperson. Who sold better than Steve Jobs? He sold his initial computers out of his garage. He collaborated with an HP executive when he was something like, HP's CEO, I believe. I hope I have this right. I think it was Hewlett Packard's CEO when he was something like 15 years old. By going through the phone book and looking up his name and getting to work with him somehow. So I thought, that's very interesting. So he had a real gift of gab, let's just say that. So I think he's underscoring, because you need the balance. You need real good product people. You need good service people. You need good customer service. You need things to get done. So it all works together.
Okay. Fair enough. Nice answer there. Very political answer, Mike. So I think. Yeah, that's it.
It's for my beloved salespeople that are watching.
There we go. He's kicking me under the table right now. You guys can't see, but no. So out of all these books, right, there's a lot, and you've gained a ton of knowledge, ideas, things from it. But if you could put only one of these books into a new business owner's hands, what would that be and why?
So I guess the key phrase is new business owner's hands, right? I would probably start with Clayson. I mean, that's where I started too. But you have to learn how to save money. You have to learn how to manage and save money at the very beginning. I mean, you're not going to be able to do anything in business if you don't budget, don't spend more than you should, if you don't get a handle on where your money's coming and going. So I'd start with Clayson. That's exactly where I'd start.
All right. That's all the questions I have for you. So you get to get out of the hot seat here.
So I just would like to just add a little bit to reading generally and just say, I mean, I don't know, so there's things I'm proud of in my life and certainly in business accomplishments and things I'm not so proud of too. But One of my more proud accomplishments actually was reading The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, which was 4,000, so roughly 4,000 pages.
Yeah.
So there was 3 volumes in it. It's written by Gibbon. And that was written in probably like 1790, 1780, something like that, like in the late 1700s. But I've done it twice. So I've read through it twice. And so that was, I thought it was a pretty good accomplishment. I unfortunately didn't get enough business ideas out of it. So maybe I have to read through it a third time with pen in hand
Yeah.
and take some notes. Anyways, I really thank everybody for listening to this podcast or viewing the podcast as well. Hopefully you get a lot out of this. There's a lot of my heart and soul into this particular podcast. So hopefully you get a lot out of it. Thank you.